Hey everyone, Tankenstein here. In this video, I'll be giving you a brief overview of the Tusk Force dev server, showing you each of the vehicles that will be coming again in this next major update. Now bear in mind, all these vehicles are on the dev server, so really anything that you see here is subject to change even beyond the release of the dev server, so who knows. But that said, this should still be a pretty damn good, hopefully a pretty decent overview of what you can expect, and there are some vehicles that will be coming that aren't even yet on the dev server. So over the next few days, I will hopefully be showing you guys some new vehicles that we don't even know are coming yet. Now that being said, let's go ahead and start with the Americans, and we have the B-66B Destroyer, and this will be all the way down here on the right side of the tech tree, and as you can see, it is a jet bomber, the currently highest BR, I guess you could say pure jet bomber that you have in the American air tech tree, and it will also have a radar-guided tail-mounted defensive system with two 20mm cannons, and will have access to up to 4 3,000-pound bombs or 14 750-pound bombs. So pretty damn decent, and it should be decently quick enough. Otherwise, we do not have any other aircraft, but we do have some ground vehicles, starting with the M55, which will have a 203mm cannon with 23.06 kilograms of force, or TNT equivalent, which means this will have more or less about the same amount of explosive force as you could expect from a 50-kilogram bomb. Actually, maybe even a touch more than that. Pretty damn impressive. Next up, we have the T-58. This is a very interesting vehicle. We'll have a 3.8-second reload time. As of right now, they did mention that that could change up to and even beyond the release of the major update, so we'll have to wait and see. But currently, it only has access to the T-267 heat shell and also a Hess shell as well. But very, very powerful shells, especially considering this is a 155mm autocannon vehicle based on the M103 chassis. And then next we have the Stingray, which is very interesting. This is an American built but exported to the Thai Army light tank, and as you can see, it has up to DM33 APF SDS, which is just fantastic. Now, as of right now here in the dev server, I do not see any sort of provision for night vision or thermals, but we'll have to wait and see again up to and beyond the release of this major update. Otherwise, it will have very good mobility, but mediocre armor. And that's pretty much it for the American air and ground. Now, for the helicopters, they are getting the AH-64E, which will have a brand new ATGM in the AGM-179 JAGM MR-IR missiles. These are going to be potent, with 16-kilometer firing range, 20-kilometer launch range, and IR guidance with a tandem charge heat warhead. Will be absolutely nasty. Now, when it comes to the naval, we're not getting all too much, but we are getting the Charles F. Adams class, which will have an air-to-air missile launcher, which is actually really, really cool. And we are also getting a brand new premium at top tier or near top tier with the USS Maryland, which is basically a slightly improved version of the Colorado, being that this is the 1945 build versus the Colorado 1942. This does have a better air-to-air or air surface-to-air or ship-to-air, whatever you want to call it, armament. But insofar as coastal, they have nothing. Now, switching over to Germany, they are getting, of course, the M55. There are going to be several countries that are getting the M55, which is really cool, and this is a very up-tierable vehicle. Bear in mind, it only has a 10-round magazine, and it's got a 30 to 40, if you're aced, about a 30-second reload. If you're not aced and you have no points into it at all, it will have nearly a 40-second reload, so it will be pretty gnarly. Now, that's pretty much it, unfortunately, for brand new vehicles for Germany, but they are getting a brand new updated model here for the Tiger 2P, which looks absolutely fantastic. As you can see, it's got Zimmerit here, which is just beautiful. It's just a very, very good looking model. Hopefully they do that with more vehicles. Otherwise, we are not getting any additional helicopters, unfortunately, and we're getting a very light taste of aircraft for Germany, but still very cool in my opinion. The Bf-109T2, the Träger 2, basically this is a carrier version with the carrier equipment removed, so it's just going to be about as fast as the E4. As you can see, it's got the same stats currently. However, it's got longer wings, and apparently it is a little bit better when it comes to low-end performance, so it should be able to maneuver better at lower end compared to other BF-109s. So even though the stat card might not reflect it as of current, this should be just marginally better than what we see in the BF-109E4, and that was intended to be used for the Graf Zeppelin and whatever other aircraft carriers they may have thought that they would have by war's end. Now that said, they are getting the Z-51 for their Blue Water fleet, which is kind of cool, but I mean, it is what it is. It kind of sucks. But one interesting feature here, this is, as far as I know, not on the regular server. The Mackinson, as you can see, it shows you now that you can obtain which vehicles during which events, which is awesome in my opinion. But that's pretty much it, unfortunately. So there's not really all too much for Germany. This is a smaller update than a lot of people might be wanting, but in my opinion, it still delivers in a few key areas, and I feel like that's really what matters. Now, when it comes to Russian ground, they don't really have anything, as you can see here, outside of the BMD-4 or M2, which is basically just a BMD-4 and BMD-4M, very similar. However, this does have a slightly different, if I'm not mistaken, turret. As you can see on this little thing here, the turret is just slightly different, and where the ammo is on the interior, I guess, is just slightly different. But otherwise, functionally speaking, there's not all too much of a difference. Now, they are getting the 9S18M3, or 9K317M Book M3, if I'm not mistaken. It's just a whole bunch of whatever. I'm not really good with all these designations, but it will have a nasty surface-to-air missile that will be able to launch out to 80 or 70 kilometers, which is just absolutely crazy. And it's got, it says, 45.74 kilograms of TNT equivalent, which is just bonkers. And bear in mind, there are going to be several countries getting similar launchers in this update. Next, we have the Mi-35P, which will be a squadron attack helicopter. Pretty cool in my opinion. It will have access to both the Vikirs and the Ataka ATGMs. And it will also be a higher rank and also higher BR than the Ka-50, which is kind of interesting. Next, when it comes to aviation for the Russians, we don't really have all too much. If I'm not mistaken, we don't have anything at all. One interesting thing, actually, that I will point out here, when it comes to the Su-25 and also the A-10 and a few other vehicles, they will now have these blocks here. So, like, let's say if you're head-oning and this gets damaged, then you won't be able to fire your guns. So it's going to be a little bit more, I guess you could say, precise insofar as the damage model is concerned. So some people might like it, some people might not. Personally, my favorite vehicle in all of War Thunder to play is the Su-25K, so that's going to kind of suck for me. Now, otherwise for Blue Water, they don't have anything. For Coastal, they do. They have the MPK-33, which is cool, and again, kind of like what we see with the Americans, we do have a surface-to-air missile in the OSA-M, so if I'm not mistaken, actually, this is pretty much the same surface-to-air missile as what you'd see here with the OSA-AKM. Yes, actually, if I'm not mistaken, it is, but very similar if nothing else, and this will be a Coastal Fleet vehicle, which is pretty cool. Now, when it comes to the UK, they will have access to the Ram, which I'm so excited for. Yeah, it's a rank 2, but in my opinion, the Ram 2 is easily one of the best vehicles around its BR, and this carries the same armor pretty much as the Ram 2, but puts it at a lower BR, and the Ram 2 is actually a very survivable vehicle. This will be even more survivable, but the problem is it only has a 40mm QF 2-pounder, which kind of sucks, but really it still has like, what, 89mm of armor pen at max, which really isn't too terrible. I mean, it is kind of bad, but it's not the worst thing in the world. Now, interestingly, I don't think they're getting the M55, which you would think that they would, but I guess they are not. But they are getting the Sky Saber, which is, again, a very powerful thing. It's got the CAM missile. Now, this is going to be a bit less powerful compared to what we just showed you in the Russian ground tech tree. However, it should still be very good. I mean, all these modern SPAA systems, I mean, you can look at one and say, oh, this one's worse. It's like, yeah, it might be technically worse, but really, I mean, would you want to fight any of them? Not really. You know, so I'm sure it will still be just as powerful. Now, when it comes to helicopters, there aren't really anything. There isn't really anything that the British air tech tree will get, or the helicopter tech tree will get, but they are getting a whole bunch of FA-18 variants, which is awesome. So we have the FA-18A, which will be a 12.3, again, at least for now. This will have access to, if I'm not mistaken, was that up to 8 missiles, including the AIM-9Ls and AIM-7Ms. Won't really have too much when it comes to anti-ground, except for the AGM-62A Walleyes, which they're pretty decent. Not amazing, but decent enough. They do give you a little bit of range. But more importantly, we are getting the CF-118A. So this will be a premium, and we'll have access to a whole bunch of anti-ground loadout, including, of course, the new targeting pod. It will have some GBUs, some AGM-65Gs and Ds, and we'll have access to, if I'm not mistaken, what is that? Up to, if you were to substitute this out, so you have 5, 6 basically between these two, and then you have 2 more, so you have up to 10 missiles. So this will be a very powerful thing, and it has access to AIM-7Ps, which are just slightly better than AIM-7Ms. And then, of course, finally, you have the AF-A18A Elite, which is an Australian version of it, and we'll have access to AIM-120Cs and Bs, as well as AIM-9Ms, as well as, of course, Ls, and a really, really nice anti-ground armament. So this will just be a very powerful vehicle overall. Next up, we do have some new Blue Water fleet here, namely in the Saumarez, which is awesome, and we also have the Nelson, which I'm sure a lot of people have actually been wanting. This is a slightly better version than what we currently have in the Rodney, and that this is a slightly better anti-aircraft version of the Nelson. This is a later war version. Really cool in my opinion, but we have the Nell rods in game in full. If I'm not mistaken, there were only 2 vehicles in that class, and we now have them represented. And then, of course, finally, nothing for the Coastal. Now, let's go ahead and just speed this up. From here, typically, anyways, once you get to Japan, typically it starts to slow down a little bit, but Japan is getting an enhancement to their Thai sub-tech tree in that they are getting the M163. They are getting the M60A3 TTS. Interestingly, there will not be ERA, at least per the dev server right now. There is not ERA coming for this vehicle. Then we have, of course, the Stingray. This should be the same version as what we have in the American ground tech tree, which is awesome. And they are getting, this is something a lot of people have been wanting, the BM Oplot T. Yes, that's right. If I'm not mistaken, it's the T-84 Oplot, which is just awesome. It will have access to a brand new APF SDS shell in the BTA-4, and we'll also have a really nice reverse speed of like 34 kilometers per hour, if I'm not mistaken, which is just fantastic, and will offer a really nice top-tier option opposed to the Type 10 and the TKX, being that this has armor, whereas these are more glass cannons. And also, this is a pretty decent reload rate of 6.5 seconds. Now, when it comes to aircraft, they are getting the Mi-35, which is pretty cool. I mean, it's not got anything crazy. It's got the Sturms, but hey, it gives you another option outside of the AH-1S. Now, when it comes to aircraft, they are also getting a really, really cool vehicle. We'll have to see how this actually plays, but it will have access to the F5TH TCU, which will have access to Derby missiles. Yeah, that's right, and Python 3s, and AIM-9Ms, and if you really want, for some reason, AIM-9Ls. So this will be pretty damn capable, including a decent enough anti-ground loadout. This will actually be a very, very nice overall vehicle, and it will be on the lower end of Fox 3 missile carrying planes, but still will be very, very nice. And it does also have a little radar. Now, it does only have access to one 20mm cannon, but I don't really think many people are going to be missing it all too much. And besides, you can still destroy enemy aircraft with that just fine. So, a very interesting plane overall. Then, of course, they are getting the Sugaru, which is kind of interesting in my opinion. I think that this is a mine-laying vehicle, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, it is. You can carry up to 60 mines and up to 8 depth charges. Otherwise, nothing really for the Blue Water fleet, nor for the Coastal fleet. Now, when it comes to China, they are getting something interesting near top tier, and also, of course, they're getting the M55, because a lot of people are getting the M55, but they are getting the VT4, which will be very powerful, has access to the Type 1985I APF SDS, which is gnarly, of course. Now, when it comes to helicopters, they're not getting anything special, but when it does come to aircraft, they are getting the King 7, which is, if I'm not, or the King 6 rather, which, if I'm not mistaken, is basically the BE6, but with better engines. So it will be a very nice vehicle around this BR. Plus, it is a torpedo bomber with access to these sort of torpedoes. It's got a pretty damn good loadout. Plus, it will have turrets of 23mm cannons. So very, very powerful overall, but pretty much that's about it for China, unfortunately. They're not getting too much, but what they are getting is kind of interesting, at least in my opinion. Now, for the most part, Italy is really not getting much. So they are getting the M55, as a lot of other vehicles are getting. And again, bear in mind, everything you see here on the dev server, there could be new vehicles that come in on the dev server tomorrow or Sunday or something, and no one would know it. Right, so they are getting the SAMP, if you will, the TADS, the FSAF, whatever you want to call it, I'm not entirely sure. And it will have access to the Aster 30 missiles. Again, pretty damn good, 100-kilometer launch range. Pretty much all these top-tier SPAA will be incredibly powerful from launch. They are not getting any new helicopters, unfortunately. And when it comes to aircraft, they are not getting any as well. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I could have sworn in the live stream that I saw that Italy was getting a new Tornado variant. I may be incorrect there, but keep that in the back of your mind. They may be getting one. It's just not showing up here currently on the dev server. Now, when it comes to Coastal, they are actually getting a pretty interesting vehicle in that they have a 40mm autocannon that should rip apart a lot of vehicles, especially at 3.3 BR. This is actually, I'm pretty excited for this. I'm probably never going to play it, but I feel like this could be one of those secret weapons that you use in order to get events done or take out objectives for missions. So this could actually be a very good vehicle that you might want to keep your eyes on. Next up, of course, we have France, and they have the M55 in the M44 line, as you can see there. Not really all too much, unfortunately, but that's, again, not all too much that they're getting. They are getting the Mamba, basically a new SPAA as well. We'll have access to the Aster 30. We're just getting a whole bunch of top-tier SPAA, which will make playing CAS even more perilous. Now, for helicopters, they don't get anything, unfortunately. But for air, they are getting a very interesting vehicle. And this one I'm actually really stoked for because it will be 12.7 BR in Air RB, which is not all too terrible. Will have access to Pythons, or not Pythons, whoops, that's another one. It will have access to AIM-9Ms and Magic 2s. This is actually going to be really nice, and hell, if you really want to, for air-to-ground, you could use it as well. But when it comes to air-to-air, holy crud, this thing's going to be good. Now, as of right now, it does not have a helmet-mounted display, but that could change again up to and beyond the release of the dev server. So this is going to be a almost pure air-to-air version of it with optional but decent air-to-ground capability. So I'm actually really impressed by that. Now, when it comes to Blue Water, they are getting the Glory, which is kind of cool. I thought that they already had that, but maybe I'm just kind of misremembering. And of course, with the Coastal, they are getting the La Intrépide and also the Anne, or however you pronounce it. I'm not really good when it comes to French. Now, for the Army of Sweden, we have the CV9015 TML. This currently does not have a stabilizer, but it will have access to DM23, and it looks like, at least based on my test drive of it, will have access to, I think, Gen 3 thermals, if not Gen 2, but really Gen 3, Gen 2, they are very similar, and it will be extremely powerful. Now, when it comes to helicopters, they're not getting anything, unfortunately, but when it comes to aviation, they are getting Norwegian Mosquitoes. Yeah, that's right. Mosquitoes are in Norway. You have several different types of it. You have the F Mark II. You also have the FB Mark 6 and the FB Mark 6 ASH, which this actually has an anti-shipping radar. As you can see, it does surface search and see, which is just really cool in my opinion, and will have access to a bunch of nice, I guess you could say, weapons. So just a really cool thing to have here in game, and apparently other Mosquitoes will be coming to the Great Britain air tech tree, if not this update, with the next update. They did mention that in the dev stream. Now, finally, when it comes here to Israel, we are getting a few vehicles, none when it comes to ground. However, they are getting aviation in the F-16I Sufa, which will have, of course, conformal fuel tanks, will have access to AIM-120Cs and AIM-9Ms, as well as a whole bunch of spicy bombs. As you can see here, the Spice 1000, Spice 250, and then some. So this thing will be really gnarly for any mission that you want to undertake. That being said, let me know what you guys think about this in the comments below. This was a somewhat long video, hopefully not too long, but it's a very interesting update. This is kind of like one of their major updates, but I feel like we're getting a few vehicles Hopefully, having the B-66 in this update means that we are going to get more jet bombers in the future. I really hope so. We need more like early to mid-Cold War vehicles, but who knows. But that said, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all on the other side. Take care, everyone.